Respect is not something we can command with authority, titles, or fear. True respect is voluntary. It is given by others when they see something in us that feels genuine, admirable, or trustworthy. We might be able to force compliance, but compliance is not respect. The difference is that compliance ends the moment authority is gone, while respect stays even when power is absent. When we demand respect, what we're really asking for is recognition without effort. But people are not inspired by demands, they're inspired by behavior. A leader who yells, "Respect me," will never be respected. At best, they will be obeyed out of fear. At worst, they will be ignored. Respect is not a right, it's a response. Earning respect requires consistency. People watch what we do far more closely than what we say. If our actions match our words, if we follow through on promises, if we show up when it matters, people begin to see us as reliable. Respect is built in these small moments of consistency that accumulate into trust. It also requires humility. Respect is never about showing others how important we are, but about making others feel important in our presence. When people feel valued, heard, and seen, they give back something far more powerful than obedience. They give respect willingly. Demanding respect puts us at the center, but earning respect shifts the focus to others. It's about lifting people up, not pushing them down. When people feel that we act with fairness and integrity, they choose to hold us in high regard without us ever having to ask for it. Respect grows when we acknowledge our flaws openly. Pretending to be perfect creates distance. Admitting mistakes creates connection. Paradoxically, people often respect us more when we are honest about our shortcomings, because it makes our strengths believable. It also depends on how we treat those who can give us nothing in return. The way we interact with waiters, assistants, juniors, or even strangers reveals our true character. Respect earned from equals is common. Respect earned from those less power carries even greater weight. In the end, respect is a reflection of who we are when nobody is required to admire us. It's not found in demands, but in the quiet accumulation of actions that make others think, "I want to follow this person, not because I have to, but because I choose to." Well, ego is like a wall we build between ourselves and others. It convinces us that we must always be right, always be in control, and always be the most important voice in the room. But walls don't let people in. They keep people out. And when ego takes the driver's seat, relationships become shallow because people feel they can't reach us. The problem with ego is that it demands recognition without offering connection. It wants applause more than understanding, validation more than truth. When we operate from ego, we may win arguments, but we lose allies. We may get attention, but we fail to build trust. People don't respect arrogance. They tolerate it until they find a better alternative. Humility, on the other hand, is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's the ability to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, that others may see things we can't, and that listening is often more powerful than speaking. Where ego closes doors, humility opens them wide. It makes space for collaboration, learning, and genuine respect. When a leader admits, "I don't know, but let's figure it out together," they invite others into the journey. That act of vulnerability builds connection, because people feel valued not just for what they do, but for what they can contribute. Humility shifts the spotlight from self to team, from individual glory to collective success. Ego demands credit, humility shares it. Ego says, "Look what I did." Humility says, "Look what we did together." And when people feel part of something bigger than themselves, they not only respect the leader, but also feel respected in return. That mutual exchange creates loyalty that ego can never buy. The irony is that ego makes us appear confident, but it often reveals insecurity. It shows up when we're too afraid to be wrong, too afraid to look small, too afraid to lose control. Humility, however, is born from security. It allows us to acknowledge our limits without fear, because we know our value doesn't come from pretending to be invincible. Humility also strengthens connection because it invites empathy. When we meet people without the armor of ego, they see us as human, they see our struggles, our effort, our sincerity, and in that shared humanity, respect grows naturally. Ego separates, humility unites. Every relationship, whether at work, at home, or in society, either thrives on humility or suffers under ego. The choice of which one we bring to the table determines not only how others see us, but how deeply they are willing to connect with us. Every time we make an excuse, we trade a little piece of our credibility for temporary comfort. Excuses may protect our pride in the moment, but they chip away at the trust others place in us. Over time, people stop believing our words because they notice the gap between what we say and what we deliver. Excuses are easy because they shift responsibility. Instead of owning a mistake, we blame the circumstances, the timing, or other people. But responsibility avoided is respect lost. People don't expect us to be perfect, they expect us to be accountable. When we fail and make excuses, we tell others we care more about saving face than learning from the experience. Credibility is built on reliability. If we say we will do something and then follow it with, or "I couldn't because," we weaken that foundation. Words without ownership quickly lose their power. People begin to question not only our promises, but also our intentions. Excuses also send a message about our priorities. When we consistently justify why something couldn't be done, what others hear is that it wasn't important enough for us to figure out. Respect doesn't come from how easy the road was, it comes from how committed we were to finding a way despite the obstacles. Taking responsibility, even when things go wrong, earns more respect than any excuse ever could. A simple, "I made a mistake, and here's how I'll fix it," tells people they can trust us again. It shows courage, integrity, and growth. Excuses, by contrast, show fear, avoidance, and denial. The danger with excuses is that they become habits. One small excuse leads to another until they define the way we operate. What begins as protecting our image ends with damaging our reputation. People may forgive a mistake, but they rarely forget a pattern of excuses. When we remove excuses from our behavior, we create space for solutions. Instead of explaining why something can't happen, we focus on how it can. That shift builds confidence in our leadership and character, because others see that we choose action over avoidance. At the core, credibility is not about never failing, it is about how we respond when we do. Excuses close the door to respect, while accountability opens it wider than any perfect performance ever could. Blame is one of the fastest ways to erode trust in any relationship. When things go wrong, pointing the finger at someone else may seem like a quick escape, but it sends a clear message: I cannot be trusted to take responsibility. People may tolerate mistakes, but they rarely forgive blame shifting because it shows a lack of integrity. When we blame others, we create division. Instead of uniting people to solve a problem, blame isolates and pits one person against another. It breeds resentment, defensiveness, and fear. In teams, this destroys collaboration because no one feels safe owning up to mistakes. Trust cannot exist in an environment where blame is the default response. Blame also exposes insecurity. It shows that we care more about protecting our image than about fixing the issue. People respect those who can say, "This was on me," even when the situation is complicated. That honesty builds trust because it shows we value truth over ego. Leaders who blame others quickly lose credibility. When a leader takes credit for success but shifts failure onto the team, trust collapses. People see through it. They stop believing in the leader's fairness and stop giving their best effort. Respect comes from sharing both the wins and the losses. Taking responsibility, on the other hand, strengthens connection. It demonstrates that we are strong enough to face consequences and humble enough to learn. When we own mistakes, we give permission for others to do the same, creating a culture of trust where people feel safe to grow. Blame also delays progress. Energy that could be used to solve a problem is wasted on defending ourselves or accusing others. Progress requires accountability, not accusation. The sooner responsibility is owned, the sooner solutions can be found. People don't expect perfection. They expect honesty. Owning failure may sting in the short term, but it builds long-term trust. Blaming others might feel easier in the moment, but it damages the very foundation of respect we are trying to earn. At its core, trust is built when people know we will stand with them in both success and failure. The moment we choose blame over responsibility, we weaken that trust, sometimes beyond repair. Reliability is one of the cornerstones of respect, and inconsistency is its greatest enemy. People may admire talent, intelligence, or charm, but they only respect those they can count on. If our behavior, words, or commitments change depending on our mood or convenience, people quickly learn they cannot rely on us. Inconsistency creates uncertainty. When people don't know which version of us will show up, the dependable one or the unpredictable one, they hesitate to trust. Uncertainty breeds hesitation, and hesitation erodes confidence. Respect fades when reliability is replaced by doubt. Consistency, on the other hand, is a signal of stability. It tells others, "You can depend on me." This doesn't mean we never change or grow, but that our principles and commitments remain steady. People trust those whose actions align with their words over time, not just in isolated moments. The danger of inconsistency is that it confuses people. When we say one thing but do another, or make promises and fail to follow through, we create a gap between expectation and reality. That gap is where disappointment grows, and repeated disappointment eventually becomes disrespect. Even small inconsistencies matter. Showing up late, changing standards depending on who's watching, or shifting values when it benefits us all send subtle signals that reliability is not guaranteed. People remember these patterns more than occasional successes, because trust is built in repetition, not exceptions. Reliability doesn't require perfection, it requires predictability. People would rather work with someone who delivers steadily, even if modestly, than someone who swings between brilliance and failure with no pattern. Respect grows when people know what they can expect from us day after day. Inconsistency also damages relationships because it feels unfair. When our words or actions change without explanation, others feel they are walking on unstable ground. Fairness requires stability, and without it, trust dissolves. Consistency is not about rigidity, it's about clarity and integrity. The truth is, respect is less about grand gestures and more about repeated actions. When we are consistent in our commitments, principles, and presence, reliability becomes our reputation. When we are inconsistent, people may like us, admire us, or even forgive us, but they will not fully respect us. Promises are powerful because they create expectations. When we make a promise, people begin to shape their plans, their hopes, and sometimes even their trust around our words. But every time we promise more than we can deliver, we plant the seeds of disappointment. Over time, those seeds grow into doubt, and doubt erodes integrity. Overpromising often comes from good intentions. We want to inspire, we want to impress, we want to reassure others that we can handle more than we actually can. But when reality fails to match our words, good intentions don't matter. What people remember is not what we meant to do, but what we failed to do. Integrity is not measured by what we aspire to, it is measured by what we follow through on. When our actions consistently fall short of our promises, others begin to question not only our ability, but also our honesty. They wonder if we exaggerate to look better, or if we lack the discipline to back up our commitments. The problem with overpromising is that it feels harmless at first. A small exaggeration here, a commitment made too quickly there. It may seem like a way to keep people satisfied in the moment. But each broken promise chips away at the foundation of respect until people stop believing anything we say. Underpromising and over-delivering may not sound as glamorous, but it builds trust. It sets realistic expectations and leaves room for reliability to shine. People respect those who deliver exactly what they said they would, even if it's modest, far more than those who constantly promise the extraordinary but fail to deliver the ordinary. Every undelivered promise creates a gap between words and reality. And in that gap, frustration grows. People begin to prepare for our failure instead of counting on our success. That shift in perception is the death of credibility, because respect cannot survive when trust has been replaced by skepticism. Overpromising also hurts us internally. It creates unnecessary pressure, stretches us beyond our limits, and often leads to burnout. When we chase the need to impress others with big words, we end up damaging not only our integrity, but also our own sense of peace and balance. At the heart of it, integrity means being believable. If people cannot take our words seriously, respect slips away no matter how talented, intelligent, or charismatic we are. Promises are not about painting the brightest picture. They are about committing to a reality we are willing and able to deliver. Respect is not only tested in grand moments, it is revealed in the small, everyday interactions. The tone of voice we use, the attention we give, the way we treat people who cannot offer us anything in return. These details may seem minor, but they leave a lasting impression. Small acts of disrespect, even unintentional ones, can create cracks that widen over time. When we dismiss someone's opinion, interrupt them constantly, or ignore their presence, we may not think it matters. But to the person on the receiving end, those small signals communicate that they are not valued. And when people feel undervalued in little things, they pull back in big things. They stop engaging fully, stop trusting deeply, and stop respecting genuinely. Disrespect often shows up subtly. It could be being late without apology, failing to acknowledge effort, or using words that diminish rather than uplift. These behaviors might not spark confrontation, but they quietly build resentment. Respect is not lost in one dramatic event. It often erodes through repeated small slights. The challenge is that we rarely notice these small moments ourselves. What feels like a joke to us may feel like ridicule to someone else. What feels like efficiency to us may feel like dismissal to another. Awareness of how our actions land on others is what separates those who maintain respect from those who unintentionally lose it. The way we treat people in small matters signals how we might treat them in larger ones. If we show care, patience, and fairness in everyday interactions, people believe they can trust us when it truly counts. But if we cut corners on respect when the stakes seem low, others assume we will do the same when the stakes are high. Respect multiplies when it is consistent across contexts. The person who greets the janitor with the same kindness they show the CEO communicates something powerful: everyone matters. That consistency creates a culture where respect flows naturally. But the opposite, showing respect only to those in power, creates distance, resentment, and eventually disconnection. Small acts of respect are also investments in relationships. Listening fully, offering gratitude, keeping small promises, these gestures may not feel dramatic, but they build a foundation of trust. When the bigger challenges arrive, people lean on that foundation. Without it, relationships collapse under the weight of pressure. At its core, respect is not measured in the big speeches or heroic moments, but in the small daily choices. When those choices reflect genuine care and acknowledgement, they draw people closer. When they reflect disregard or neglect, they quietly push people away until the distance becomes too great to bridge. Respect is not something we chase directly. It is something that grows as a result of our choices. Too often, people try to earn respect by adding more achievements, more recognition, more displays of power. But the truth is, respect grows not by addition, but by subtraction. By removing the habits that erode trust, we create the space for respect to take root. Destructive habits are like weeds in a garden. No matter how much we plant, if the weeds are not pulled, they choke growth. Blaming others, making excuses, overpromising, or showing inconsistency all act like weeds. Each one may seem small on its own, but together they prevent respect from flourishing. When we stop clinging to ego, stop defending our mistakes with excuses, and stop disrespecting others in small ways, people begin to notice a shift. They no longer have to question our motives or doubt our reliability. Instead, they start to see clarity, authenticity, and accountability, qualities that naturally attract respect. Removing destructive habits also builds trust because it signals change. People are quick to notice patterns, and when destructive patterns are broken, it tells them we are serious about growth. Trust grows not because we claim to be better, but because we act differently over time. This process also requires patience. Respect does not grow overnight. Just as a garden takes time to flourish once the weeds are cleared, respect takes time to rebuild after destructive habits are removed. Consistency is what convinces people that the change is real, not temporary. The beauty of removing destructive habits is that it doesn't require us to be perfect. It simply requires us to be intentional. Every time we choose responsibility over excuses, humility over ego, and consistency over inconsistency, we water the soil of respect. Over time, these choices create a reputation that speaks louder than words. Respect also grows in the absence of fear. Destructive habits often create tension, suspicion, and distance. By removing them, we replace fear with trust, doubt with confidence, and distance with connection. People naturally respect those who make them feel safe, valued, and supported. In the end, respect is not a performance, but a byproduct. When we stop the behaviors that weaken trust, we don't need to demand respect or even seek it. It begins to grow on its own, quietly and steadily, as others experience the integrity of our actions day after day.